we thanking the Lord that today we're looking at Numbers chapter 4. Now, Numbers 4, what are we looking at here? We're looking at a lot of preparation for movement, getting ready to move. All right, let me just say this to you. Let's get a little understanding here. So what we're really talking about. I'm gonna show you how.
Good morning.
Good morning, Calvin. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. I'm okay.
That's good. I'm glad to see you on the lesson today.
Yes, I'm here.
All right.
I'm here.
All right,
I
brother.
need to hear the word.
All right.
I've been going through so much, and I need to hear it today.
All right. Well, we're just certainly glad, and we're going to continue to pray for you, and the Lord will just strengthen you in your mind, your heart, your body, and your soul.
Thank you.
All right, sir. So, what we're looking at today, let me give you just a little image in your mind. How many of you have ever moved before? I mean, you packed up all your furniture and you moved from one place to another. Okay. Number one, I want to ask you a couple questions. Now, how fun was that? Now, if you move into a really, really, really nice place, maybe you're like, okay, I'm excited about moving. But the actual, moving, packing, putting all that stuff in boxes, and especially if you did it yourself, and if you didn't do it yourself, you paid somebody a good deal of money to do it for you. So moving wasn't something that you looked at and go, ooh, I can't wait to do this again. Moving is something that's difficult. Now, let me ask you something else about moving. When you were moving, how many people came around, and watched you move? Did the news come by? Did the reporter come by and interview you? Like, well, how are you feeling now that you're moving from, Oak Street to Turn Lane and all this excitement? And was people all jumping and happy and excited about you moving? Nobody cared, did they? The only people that cared about you moving was you and your family. So what am I trying to say?
Some of your neighbors.
And some of your neighbors, that's right. Trying to see what you throw it out. But the point I'm making is moving is hard work, and it is not exciting, and it is not something that anybody else but the people that are moving really care about. But yet we got several chapters in this Bible about moving from one place to another, and we're going to get some detailed information about moving. Now, the other thing I want you to pay attention to when we go through the reading here, I want you to pay attention to the moving aspect, but I also want you to pay attention to this. I'm going to go from a mover, let's go to a chef. Actually, we want to look at a baker, somebody that's baking. And you're baking a cake. Now, what goes in the cake? You got flour, you got baking powder, you got, depending on what you're cooking, you got the different types of flavoring and ingredients. All right. And then you usually got to do what? You got to mix it up in a bowl, right? At some point. And then you pour it into a pan. And when you pour it into the pan, do you serve it then? No. You got to put it into the oven and heat it. Okay. All right. Let's say we do all the same things. I'm going to do the exact same stuff. I'm just going to do it in the order I want to do it in. This is the way I want to do it. So I want to get all the ingredients, and I want to heat all the ingredients first. Then I'm going to mix them in the pan, and then I'm going to serve it. Am I going to have a cake? No. Why? Because you got to follow the correct order. You can do the same things, but if you do the same things, if you heat the ingredients before you mix them, you're not going to get the same result. Even though you're doing the same thing, but you're just doing it in a different order. So order matters. The way and the when is important. So keep that in mind while we're listening to this chapter. A bunch of moving, but it's also important to know how you're moving. All right, let's take a listen. Numbers chapter 4.
Chapter 4. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, Take the sum of the sons of Kohath from among the sons of Levi, after their families by the house of their fathers, from from 30 years old and upward, even until 50 years old, all that enter into the host, to do the work in the tabernacle of the congregation. This shall be the service of the sons of Kohath in the tabernacle of the congregation about the most holy things. And when the camp setteth forward, Aaron shall come and his sons, and they shall take down the covering veil, and cover the ark of testimony with it, and shall put thereon the covering of badger skins, and shall spread over it a cloth wholly of blue, and shall put in the staves thereof. And upon the table of shewbread they shall spread a cloth of blue, and put thereon the dishes, and the spoons, and the bowls, and covers to cover withal, and the continual bread shall be thereon. And they shall spread upon them a cloth of scarlet, and cover the same with a covering of badger skins, and shall put in the staves thereof. And they shall take a cloth of blue, and cover the candlestick of the light, and his lamps, and his tongs, and his snuff dishes, and all the oil vessels thereof, wherewith they minister unto it. And they shall put it, and all the vessels thereof, within a covering of badger skins, and shall put it upon a bar. And upon the golden altar they shall spread a cloth of blue, and cover it with a covering of badger skins, and shall put to the staves thereof. And they shall take all the instruments of ministry, wherewith they minister in the sanctuary, and put them in a cloth of blue, and cover them with a covering of badger skins, and shall put them on a bar. And they shall take away the ashes from the altar, and spread a purple cloth thereon. And they shall put upon it all the vessels thereof, wherewith they minister about it, even the censers, the flesh hooks, and the shovels, and the basins, all the vessels of the altar, and they shall spread upon it a covering of badger skins, and put to the staves of it. And when Aaron and his sons have made an end of covering the sanctuary, and all the vessels of the sanctuary, as the camp is to set forward, after that the sons of Kohath shall come to bear it. But they shall not touch any holy thing, lest they die. These things are the burden of the sons of Kohath in the tabernacle of the congregation. And to the office of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, pertaineth the oil for the light, and the sweet incense, and the daily meat offering, and the anointing oil, and the oversight of all the tabernacle, and of all that therein is, in the sanctuary, and in the vessels thereof. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, Cut ye not off the tribe of the families of the Kohathites from among the Levites, but thus do unto them, that they may live and not die when they approach unto the most holy things. Aaron and his sons shall go in, and appoint them every one to his service and to his burden. But they shall not go in to see when the holy things are covered, lest they die. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Take also the sum of the sons of Gershon throughout the houses of their fathers by their families. From 30 years old and upward until 50 years old shalt thou number them, all that enter in to perform the service, to do the work in the tabernacle of the congregation. This is the service of the families of the Gershonites, to serve and for burdens. And they shall bear the curtains of the tabernacle, and the tabernacle of the congregation, his covering, and the covering of the badger skin that is above upon it, and the hanging for the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and the hangings of the court, and the hanging for the door of the gate of the court, which is by the tabernacle, and by the altar round about, and their cords, and all the instruments of their service, and all that is made for them, so shall they serve. At the appointment of Aaron and his sons shall be all the service of the sons of the Gershonites, in all their burdens, and in all their service, and ye shall appoint unto them in charge all their burdens. This is the service of the families of the sons of Gershon in the tabernacle of the congregation, and their charge shall be under the hand of Ithamar, the son of Aaron the priest. As for the sons of Merari, thou shalt number them after their families by the house of their fathers. From 30 years old and upward, even unto 50 years old, shalt thou number them, every one that entereth into the service, to do the work of the tabernacle of the congregation. And this is the charge of their burden, according to all their service in the tabernacle of the congregation. The boards of the tabernacle, and the bars thereof, and the pillars thereof, and sockets thereof, and the pillars of the court round about, and their sockets, and their pins, and their cords, with all their instruments, and with all their service. And by name ye shall reckon the instruments of the charge of their burden. This is the service of the families of the sons of Merari, according to all their service, in the tabernacle of the congregation, under the hand of Ithamar the son of Aaron the priest. And Moses and Aaron and the chief of the congregation numbered the sons of Kohathites after their families, and after the house of their fathers, from 30 years old and upward, even unto 50 years old, every one that entereth into the service for the work in the tabernacle of the congregation. And those that were numbered of them by their families were 2,750. These were they that were numbered of the families of the Kohathites, all that might do service in the tabernacle of the congregation, which Moses and Aaron did number according to the commandment of the Lord by the hand of Moses. And those that were numbered of the sons of Gershon throughout their families and by the house of their fathers, from 30 years old and upward even unto 50 years old, every one that entereth into the service for the work in the tabernacle of the congregation, even those that were numbered of them throughout their families by the house of their fathers, were 2,630. These are they that were numbered of the families of the sons of Gershon, of all that might do service in the tabernacle of the congregation, whom Moses and Aaron did number according to the commandment of the Lord. And those that were numbered of the families of the sons of Merari, throughout their families by the house of their fathers, from 30 years old and upward even unto 50 years old, every one that entereth into the service for the work in the tabernacle of the congregation, even those that were numbered of them after their families, were 3,200. These be those that were numbered of the families of the sons of Merari, whom Moses and Aaron numbered according to the word of the Lord by the hand of Moses. All those that were numbered of the Levites, whom Moses and Aaron and the chief of Israel numbered, after their families and after the house of their fathers, from 30 years old and upward, even unto 50 years old, every one that came to do the service of the ministry and the service of the burden and the tabernacle of the congregation, even those that were numbered of them, were 8,500 fourscore. According to the commandment of the Lord, they were numbered by the hand of Moses, every one according to his service, and according to his burden. Thus were they numbered of him, as the Lord commanded Moses.
All right, so there we go. We got this whole discussion about moving, but we're moving the things of the Lord. Now, when you're moving, and that's why I introduced all this concept about moving before we did the reading, because I wanted you to kind of have, moving your precious items in your mind while you're reading this. And then also I wanted you to understand the order, because we're going to talk about why that order. Because if you get the order wrong on your pie or on your cake, what you going to have? You're going to have a cake that nobody's going to eat. It's just going to be a nasty cake. But if you get the order wrong here, you will die. See, so order is important. How and when you do things. And depending on what family you're dealing with and what your responsibility was. All right? So the order has to be paid attention to and made sure that it's carried out right. But now, the moving aspect, that when you're moving stuff, there's certain things that you got that are really precious, and they may be what? Fragile. What do you do with the stuff that's precious and fragile? You wrap it a lot of times. Sometimes you remember you used to stuff it with newspaper, right? Wrap it around with newspaper, or you may put it with bubble wrap, and then you put it in a box, and in the box you may put some more stuff to cover it, to kind of keep it from, because it's fragile. And then you might even write on the box, fragile, handle with care. Why? Because inside that particular container is something that you got to handle a certain way. All right, when you carry in the refrigerator, and all that stuff, you just pick it up and go. You don't even put the refrigerator in a protective box. You just put it in there. You might throw a covering on it, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. But the concept is that each item that you move, there's a certain thing that you want to do to it to make sure it gets to where you're going in the condition that it originally left. You don't want it damaged, broken, or destroyed. So, keeping that in mind, let's take a look here. So it says, and the Lord spake, this is Numbers chapter 4, verse 1. And it says, and the Lord spake unto Moses and to Aaron. Okay, we always try to bring this out. I think it's important. It's highly repetitive. I say this all the time. But we got to make sure we remember it. Who's telling them to do this? The Lord.
The Lord.
And that's so important. All right? What is God saying to you? And you say, well, my goodness, it seems like every time we start something, the Lord's saying. Of course. Every time you wake up in the morning, you should be hearing from the Lord. Every day that you go, and do a task, you should be hearing from the Lord. Are we listening? And are we paying attention? So, yes, all of our chapters seem to have this very similar phrase here, especially when you're dealing with the books of Moses. The Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, talking to both of them now, saying, take the sum of the sons of the Kohath, of Kohath, from among the sons of the Levites. Okay, so we're talking about now, remember before when we were looking at all the other tribes, and I told you that we're not going to be dealing with the Levites right now. The Levites are going to be dealt with by themselves. Well, here we are. We're now dealing with these Levites. And so the Kohath family is one of the families that is part of the Levite tribe. Okay? So, they have been identified and given a responsibility. Let's take a look at what their responsibility is. And I will say this to you. You have been identified and you have been given a responsibility. And you say, well, yeah, I know what my responsibility is. Good. Or you might say, I don't know what my responsibility is. Well, seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. You got to keep going to the Lord until you get clear comprehension as to what your task is. Because you're going to need to do it, and you got to do it the way God told you to do it. I can spend a lot of time talking about that, a lot of time how God put something in your heart, and you will be involved in something similar or something like it, and you're like, this is good, but this ain't for me. And, oh, this is working really good for this person, and I like the way they do it, but that way is not for me. Why? Because God's put in your heart a way for you to do it the way he wants you to do it. And you need to seek that out and find it. And when you get it, you will recognize it. You will definitely recognize it. I'm going to elaborate on that, not today, but on another time, because I got a long story to tell, and we don't have time to hear that story. But it's important for you to recognize when your task, it's your turn, here it is, start doing it. All right, so the Lord spake unto Moses and to Aaron, saying, take the sum of the sons of Kohath from among the Levites after their families by the houses of their fathers. All right, and then in verse 3 it says from 30 years old and upward, all the way up to 50. So here's the responsibility. You start doing this job when you turn what? 30. You're finished when you're what? 50. Early retirement. All right, but you also had a long time for internship. You took 30 years for you to get to understand the importance and the responsibility. You're not just going to throw anybody in here to do this that's going to work immaturely or try to find shortcuts or try to find an easier way to do it. Easy here will kill you. Trying to find an easy way to do this, you will end up dead. You got to do it the way it's told to be done. All right? So therefore, you have that whole aspect, 30 to 50, a little more responsible-minded, and able to do. All right, and so they're going to enter into the host to do the work in the tabernacle of the congregation. See there, where are we? We're in the tabernacle of the congregation. That means we're in the place where God says, "This is where I will meet you." So we're moving God's furniture. See, I told you to keep in mind, when you're moving your furniture, but we're moving the what? The furniture that was orchestrated and engineered and developed by the Lord himself. And God said, I'm going to tell you how to move my furniture. And you have to do it the way I told you. Okay? So he goes on. He says, now, verse 4, he says, this shall be the service of the sons of the Kohath in the tabernacle of the congregation about the most holy things. So, keep in mind, the Levites are to do it, but not any Levite. You have to be of the Kohath family. And you're going to be working on moving the most holy things. The most important things to the Lord got to be moved every time the tent moves. And you need to know how to handle it. Look at what happens here. So now we're talking to the Kohath family, but look at, some people might not see this, but all of a sudden there's a shift. Look at the shift in verse 5. It says, and when the camp setteth forth, in other words, when it's time for this camp to move, when it's time to pack up and go, Look at what it says here. Aaron shall come and his sons. Wait a minute, I thought this was the work of the Kohath family. It is. But before the Kohath family can go and move it, Aaron and his sons got to go in and do something. I wonder why. Let's take a look. And they shall come down, they shall take down the coverings of the veil and cover the ark of testimony with it. Oh. So, before the Kohath family comes in, Aaron and his sons, which are the people responsible for the service in the Holy of Holies, have to come in and do what? Cover everything. Why do they got to cover everything? Because only the person operating in the office of high priest is supposed to be able to see the things of the Lord. So it has to be covered.
The ark.
The ark has to be covered, and not just the ark. We're gonna see all this other stuff, but I'm gonna emphasize this aspect of covering, and then I'm gonna just list some of the stuff that got to be covered, so I don't have to give the same conversation for each item. But the point that I want to make sure that we get when we look at all this covering, because I'm going to skim through the rest of this, is that you're not supposed to be looking at these things if you're not the proper person. If you look at it and you're not the person that's supposed to be looking at it, you will die. Why? Because only the person that has ceremonially have been purified, in other words, that has that ceremonial perfection, has the ability to look at the things of God. Because these are the things that mark the means by which Jesus will bring salvation. And the only way you can bring salvation, the only way Jesus could bring salvation to us was for him to come in our world and still be without a spot or a blemish. He had to still be what? Perfect. And then he could offer up himself as a lamb. So therefore there couldn't be any tainting, anything wrong, any problems, any blemishes, or any wrinkles. It had to be perfect. And so it couldn't be tampered with. And so to protect it, when anybody would come to mar it, even to the point of putting an unneeded fingerprint on it, they would die before that happens. Because God was going to keep what he had as the perfected. And so this ark is a type of Jesus. He's a type of our salvation. This whole aspect of the tent of the tabernacle where God said, I will meet you in, represents the perfection that Jesus has. And so nobody can mar it. That's not supposed to. So, therefore, to keep the Kohath family from looking and gazing and handling it with their hands, the sons of Aaron came in first and put a covering over it. Okay, so I'm gonna give a crude example, but you'll get it. When you got grandma's chest that's 400 years old, and it's made of this very unique wood, and the movers are coming, and you put it in the truck, you think you're gonna put some covering over it to keep it from getting scratched up? Of course you are. All right. So that's just a crude example because grandma's chest ain't got nothing to do or any reason to be compared to the ark of the Lord. But I think you get the point when I kind of bring those two together. This is valuable, but it's also extremely responsible in the fact that if you handle it wrong, you don't just get a scratch on the furniture. If you handle it wrong, you die. So you got to make sure that you wait and allow Aaron and his sons, Mr. and Mrs. Kohath, to go in and cover it first. So look what it says. They cover the ark of the testimony. Look at verse 6. And they shall put thereupon the covering of badger skin, and shall spread over it a cloth wholly of blue, and shall put the staves thereon. And what were the staves used for? They would go into the ring, and that's how you what? That's how you carried it. You never touched the ark. You only carried the staves that were in the ring that stuck out, the pieces of wood that stuck out that were covered, and then you would lift it up using those. That's how you're supposed to carry it. We're going to see later on when David tried to move it, he put it on a cart and had an ox pulling it. And it ended up in death because they weren't carrying it correctly. But let's keep going. In verse 7, it says, and put the table of showbread. All right, that's in the Holy of Holies. And spread a cloth of blue, and upon there put the dishes and the spoons and the bowls, and cover to cover it withal. All right, you're going to cover all of those. All right, and then in verse 8, it says, and ye shall spread upon them a cloth of scarlet, and cover the same with the covering of badger skin. All right. And in verse 9, we see this again. And like I said, I'm just going to skim through it. It says, and they shall take the cloth of blue and cover the candlesticks of the light and the lamps and its tongues and the snuffers and all the oil vessels thereon. All right, which you use for ministry. All of that gets covered. Look at verse 10. And they shall put it and all the vessels thereof within a covering of badger skin, and shall put them upon the bar. So you're covering them, and then you're putting them inside a covering of what? Of badger skin. All right, and so it's important to keep that in mind. All right, look at verse 11. And upon the golden altar they shall spread a cloth of blue and cover it. So even the altar is to be covered. Look at verse 12. And they shall take all the instruments of ministry. Therewith they minister in the sanctuary, and put them in a cloth of blue and cover them. All right, so once again, everything is getting what? Everything is getting covered. Now, I'm going through this because I think it's important that we see this importance of how the Lord talks in each instance about these items, and how he says, so he could just say cover everything, but he's making a mention of each of the items, so you don't say, well, you didn't say specifically to cover that item. Every instrument in the Holy of Holies is to be what? Covered before it begins to be moved. All right? And so we see that in verse 14, the vessels and the censers and the flesh hooks and the stove and the brazen altar is to be covered with badger skin. Look at verse 15. All right, and it says, and this is important. Look what it says. And when Aaron and his sons have made an end of covering the sanctuary and all the vessels of the sanctuary, as the camp is to set forth, after that the sons of Kohath shall come in and bury. Now, you see why the order is important. You can't send the sons of Kohath in there. We got to move this furniture. You don't move the furniture. You don't even look at the furniture until it's first been what? Covered. Now, I think so much about how even our Lord, there's certain things that you can't do until certain other things are done first. All right? When the very first aspect of covering, we remember seeing where? In Genesis. When Adam and Eve sinned, the first covering was done by who? By man. Adam and Eve tried to cover their own self, and they tried to cover themselves with what? Fig leaves.
Big league.
But God said that ain't gonna do. If you notice here, it's covered with animal skins. And what did God cover Adam and Eve with? With animal skins. All right? And so this is how sin is to be dealt with. It's to be covered. And to keep it covered, why? Because sin and the redemption and the so-called spiritual surgery to remove sin is not something that everybody needs to see. The Lord's going to see it, and Jesus is going to see it. And when Jesus sees it, he's going to get into it and become part of it for a temporary time. And when the Father sees him go in there and take on the burden of sin, the Father sees it. And when the Father sees it, he turns his back. And that's why Jesus cries, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? But that's during the covering aspect. And what's happening is then when Jesus finishes it, he now has a covering that he purchased not just with his skin, but with his whole body. And he does what? Covers us. So you see, it's incidental moving of furniture, but it speaks to the covering that we have, that we walk with every day. Every day we're moving with a covering. We're covered every time we take a breath, every time we blink an eye, we're doing it under the covering of Jesus. Right? Now that was the work of the Kohath family, dealing with the Holy of Holies. How do we move this very, very sanctified and holy stuff of God? You move it very carefully. You don't just do it any old kind of way. And that also speaks about us when it comes down to salvation. I'm going to be saved my own way. I know how to save myself. You're going to hell. All right? You got to do it God's way. You got to cook it the way God says to cook it. You can't just warm up the ingredients and serve the pie without mixing it first. Then it's not, if you do that, it's not a pie. And if you try to do something until I want to save myself, and you have all the right stuff. I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be kind. I'm gonna be nice. I'm gonna love God. I'm gonna do that. But I'm not gonna really, heat it up with the love of Jesus. Well, all you got is the ingredients, but you don't have salvation. There's a lot of very, very sweet, nice, kind people that omit Jesus, and their ingredients for salvation is uncooked. It's not ready to be served to the Lord, and it's going to be rejected. Just like you would reject a pie that somebody cooked when they warm up the ingredients and mix it afterwards. You're not eating that. I'm not eating it. And the Lord's not going to eat our half-baked stuff that we try to present to him. The scripture tells us our best righteousness is what? Filthy rags. And the Lord's not going to accept that. All right, so let's go on. Look at verse, so that's the work of the Kohath family. Look at verse 16. And to the office of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest presented the oil of the light and the sweet incense and a daily meat offering and an anointing oil. And so what he's saying here is the sons of Aaron that were responsible for helping the Kohath family was Eleazar's children. Now, look at what he gives them a responsibility. He says, this is all the stuff you got to do. You got to make sure that you're doing all these things daily. And look at verse 17. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, saying, look at this, verse 18. Cut ye not off the tribe of the families of the Kohathites from among the Levites. Why is he saying this? Because he's saying, you make sure you do things right. Because if you don't cover it and they come in, what's going to happen to them? They're going to die. So he's saying, take your job of responsibility seriously. Don't have them being cut off. Because if they come in there and you didn't cover it right and they touch it, you're going to die. But it's going to be your responsibility. Yes. So look what he says. He says, but thus do unto them that they may live and not die when they approach unto the most holy things. Aaron and his sons shall go in. Make sure you send Aaron and his sons in there. And appoint them every one to his service and do his burden. You better do your part. And it's called a burden because it's your responsibility. Everything is covered, but one son says, it's your job. Yep. One son says, I'm not going to cover the candlesticks, or I'm not going to cover the showbread. What does it matter? You're going to have somebody dying because of your lack of holding up to what you were told to do by God. The Kohathite, and God brings this to his point. The Kohathite family is in a very vulnerable spot. If Aaron and his sons don't do what they're supposed to do, folks will die. And you got to make sure you're covering it. Go ahead.
I find out that this generation that is coming up now is very lax in their responsibility. They don't feel like they have any responsibility to do their part, which then does affect others.
Right.
They don't feel that it affects others.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another trick, I believe, of the devil to get them out of line. Because, like you're explaining, order is serious.
It's important.
It's important.
It's very important how you do it and when you do it.
God is a God of order.
He
Yes.
is. He is. And you got to make sure that you try to find the right way. And the scripture tells us that you can gain the whole world. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know Jesus, you will still what? Lose your soul.
Lose your soul.
So that's number one. You got to have that. All right. Well, there are other things that need to be met, but it spent a lot of time with the Kohath family because they were dealing with the holy stuff, all that stuff that if you touch it and handle it wrong, you will die. Stuff that nobody gets to see but the high priest. But it's still stuff's got to be moved. You got to do the job of the Lord. All right. But let's go on and take a look at some of these other families. All right, so verse 21. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, take also the sum of the sons of Gershon throughout the house of their fathers by their family. All right, so now we got the sons of Gershon. All right, and so in verse 23, it says from 30 years upward and 50. So it's the same thing, from 30 years old to 50. All right, this is the work they're going to be doing. Let's look at verse 24. And this is the service of the family of the Gershonites to serve and for burdens. All right, this is what their responsibility is. 25. They shall bear the curtains of the tabernacle. All right, now notice it didn't say that anybody had to go and cover it. They just got to handle it. What? Go get the curtains. Why? Because the curtains are seen by everybody anyway. Everybody get to see the curtains. You got curtains on your window. Anybody walking down the street can walk down and look at your curtains. All right? But not everybody can come in and just look in your bathroom. All right? That's something different. They have to. That's a whole different set of things that have to be okayed before they can come in and go into your bathroom. But your curtains outside the window, anybody can come by and look at it. All right? So the curtains of the tabernacle of the congregation. All right? But you're going to still cover them, but they get to cover them. All right? And they cover it with badger skins. Why? Because when you're walking, you get to see it, but you might be walking past some heathen or some Gentile nations, and they don't need to see what you're carrying. So even though you can look at it, we don't want everybody seeing what you're doing. All right? You know, it's like when you're taking your laundry out. Sometimes you take your laundry and you got it in a clear plastic bag. Well, if you got it in a clear plastic bag and you go into a public laundry, folks will look in there and see all your stuff. You see what you're carrying. But if you put it in something that they can't see through, now it's what? It's covered. They don't know what you're carrying. They know you're carrying, but don't know what you're carrying. All right, so they're dealing with these things that are part of the curtains. Now, once again, I'm going to skim through them because their responsibility is very unique and it's very stereotypical as to what they have to carry. And so they're carrying all these things that hang. Curtains hang. It says, and so let me read the bottom part where it says bottom part of 25, where it says the badger skins that is above it and the hangings for the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. Look at 26. And the hanging of the court and the hanging of the door of the gate of the court, which is by the tabernacle. All right. And it goes on with that. So we'll talk more about that. Look at 27. At this appointment of Aaron and his sons, they shall be at all the services of the sons of Gershon, in all their burdens and in all their services, and all their appointed upon them in the charge of their burdens. So everything that they're carrying, they're supposed to do. This is your, when it says burdens, basically saying that's your what? That's your job. That's your responsibility. Okay, so it just kind of very simplistic aspect that they're carrying all the hanging stuff, the curtains, and all that stuff that hangs between the gates. All right, but in verse 28, he sums this up, and he says, and this is the service of the families of the sons of Gershon in the tabernacle of the congregation, and their charge shall be under the hand of Ithamar, the son of Aaron the priest. So Another one of Aaron's sons, Ithamar, is responsible for making sure, did y'all get all the hangings? Did y'all get all the curtains? Did you cover them all? Did you do that proper? Because we're getting ready to move. All right? So, and then in verse 29 it says, and as for the sons of Merari, now this is another family, they shall be numbered after their family by the house of their father. Once again, verse 30, from 30 years old up to 50. All right? And then it's going to begin to tell them what their responsibility is. And look at verse 31 to get their responsibility. And this is the charge of their burden according to all their service in the tabernacle of the congregation, the boards of the tabernacle, the bars thereof, the pillars thereof, the sockets. Boy, they're carrying the heavy stuff.
I was going to say that.
These guys are the ones that have got the muscles, because they're carrying all this heavy stuff. The sockets, the pillars of the court round about, and their sockets. This is 32, and the pins and the cords and the instruments. All right, and all with all their services, and by the name ye shall reckon the instruments of the charge to their burden. So every one of these instruments that we mentioned is going to be their responsibility to make sure it gets moved and moved properly. All right, so verse 33 sums it up a little bit, and it says, this is the service of the family of the sons of Merari, according to all their service, in the tabernacle of the congregation, under the hand of Ithamar, the son of Aaron, the priest. All right, so now we got the instructions for moving the holy of holies, moving all of its stuff, and it's to be done only by the priest. And then the priests are divided into three families, and each of those three families have a responsibility. Okay? Now, we talked about this as far as being responsible. If anyone decided they didn't want to do their job, it will cause a problem, especially the sons of Kohath. All right? And so it's important that we keep that in mind when it comes down to our walk and our work with the Lord. The Lord will ask you to do some things. Sometimes there are certain people that your thing that you've been asked to do will get you in more trouble if you don't do it than other people. And you can say, well, that ain't fair. We're not dealing with fair, we're dealing with responsibility. You see, what you are responsible for, you are responsible for. You remember when Jesus said that there were certain ones that were given talents? One was given 5, another one was given 3, another one was given 1. And each one that handled their responsibility correct was said, you know, you've done well, you've been faithful over a few things, enter ye into the joys of the Lord. But the one that had 1, he was like, well, what can I do with 1 talent? I'm just going to bury it. And what did the Lord say to him? You wicked and unprofitable servant. You should have done what I was telling you to do with that 1, and it would have been multiplied, because it wasn't you that was going to make it grow. It's the Lord. But when you think it's all about you, you think, well, I don't have as much as they got, so I can't do what they're doing, because you're thinking about your own strength and your own power. Remember, if God gave that to you, though it may be minute and small, God is the one responsible for making sure that it matures, because that's why he gave it to you. He just wants you to trust him. All right? And so the responsibilities here, the Kohath family had major responsibilities. But all the other families that were carrying the hangers and the curtains, and other people that were carrying, you know, the pillars and the wood, that's important too. All right? You got to make sure you bring and do your job. Okay. Now, this next portion of scriptures, basically all this is just outlining the numbers about how many people. All right? And so what it says here in verse 36, it says, and actually, let's go to 35. From 30 years old and upwards, even to 50 years old, everyone that entered into the service for the work of the tabernacle of the congregation, and those that were numbered of them by their families were 2,750. All right, so it's just giving you the number, and that's how many of the Kohathites there were, 2,750. All right, and if you go down to verse 38, it begins to talk about the numbering of the Gershon family. And if you want to read all that again, you can, but the bottom line is there was 2,630 of them. Okay?
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people, you know, because there's a lot of stuff. Y'all remember when we were doing the chapters in Leviticus talking about the creation of all the furniture and all the pillars and all the sockets? It was a lot of stuff. So this way, everybody can have something moved. But that ain't all of it. Then the Merari family, if you go down to verse 42, down to about 46, 42 to 45, you get the description of them. And that they were 3,200 people. Now, why was there so many of them? Because they're carrying what?
Oh,
the heavy stuff.
Yeah.
They're carrying the stuff.
They're carrying the building.
They're carrying the building, exactly. Good way to put it. They're carrying the building. That's exactly a good way to put it. And so
they broke it down.
That's it. And so when it was all said and done, what we see from verse 46 all the way down, and we'll read that last one in just a bit. But just to get the number, it was 8,580. All right, that were responsible for moving the tabernacle of God, moving God from one place to another. All right, so basically God is saying, I'm hiring you guys as my moving company, and I want it moved a certain way, and if you don't move it the right way, it's going to be some problems. And then he pulled the sons of Gershon. If you notice, half of this chapter is dealing with the not Gershon, the Kohathites. The Kohathites, excuse me. Half of this chapter deals with the Kohathites. Why? Because the Kohathites are carrying God's holy vessels. And he's saying, now listen, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, if you mess this up, not only are you not going to get paid, you're going to die. Okay? And so it was important to keep in mind. That's why when I started all of this, before we even entered into it, I wanted to get you an understanding of moving and the responsibility. And then I also wanted to get you an introducing and doing things in order. So I talked about the chef and how certain things have to be done proper. So this is gourmet moving. This is gourmet moving. You're moving furniture, but this ain't just slopping stuff around. It's got to be done precisely. It's got to be done exactly. Okay? So let's read the 49th. We're going to finish with that. It says, according to the commandment of the Lord, there were numbered by the hand of Moses, everyone according to his service. So you had 8,000 people, but every one of them had their own service. And you better know what your service is. So if I say to you, I want to send you an email, I need what? Your email address. You can say, well, yeah, I'm part of Gmail, or I'm part of Outlook, or I'm part of. Well, it's still, if you're part of Gmail, I need your specific email. I can't just send it to Gmail. So it's your specific. And so there's a lot of ways of identifying things that are specific, and that's just one way that I've just picked to kind of give an illustration. But what I'm saying is that this whole move is done by each person doing their singular part. It's a big move.
It has to be done in order.
And done in order, exactly. So I'm going to read this again. According to the commandments of the Lord, they were numbered by the hand of Moses, everyone according to his service and according to his burden. It's a service, but it also is what? Burden speaks about what? Work. It's a job. It's something that may not be easily done, but you got to gird yourself up and get it accomplished. Thus were the numbering of him as the Lord commanded Moses. All right. So we're 4 chapters in. You kind of get a feel for why they initially called this book the book of what? Numbers.
Numbers.
Because that's what we're looking at. We're looking at a lot of stuff. And so even in our lives, there are things that God has aware of and count of. He knows things about us that can easily be pulled up and given statistics about. He knows how many days you fear. He knows how many days you worry. He knows how often you seek him. He knows the days you ignore him. He knows the days you're mad at him. He knows the days when you want to turn your back. He knows the days when you say, I'm sorry. He knows how many times you said, Lord, help me. Lord, forgive me. The Lord has all of that. All of it's been numbered. And that's one of the things in the book of Numbers to keep in mind. Nothing is ignored. Everything is counted. You go to accounting. I don't know if any of you ever took accounting class. I did when I was in high school. And it was one of the most frustrating classes because you had to do a mock business and count every dollar, every cent. And when it was all said and done, you didn't get an A in the class if every dime, every penny didn't what? Add up. Now, it was frustrating to me because when I couldn't add it up, I would say if I had a real business and I was slacking 25 cents, I would just take 25 cents out of my pocket, put it in there and be done. But you can't do that in accounting class. You got to find out where the error is. Where did not count 25 cents? Well, that's just accounting. What do you think God has on your account? Everything. He's got everything numbered. He's got everything counted, and everything is accounted for. So, what you want to do is try to do all that you can to make sure that your accountings are good. But the ultimate thing that you want to do is take all your deeds and all your accountings and all your stuff and cast it to the Lord and take God's stuff. I want the Lord's record. I want his books. I don't want my books. My books are messed up and the numbers don't add up. The Lord's books add up. And when I take his books and put them into my cover, when you open up my accounting sheet, all you're going to see is Jesus and the numbers are going to be perfect. That's called taking on his righteousness. We're accepting the blood, the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. And that's why we have salvation. Because we have been looked at as you did the work and you did it perfectly. And when you do it perfectly, nobody dies. If you do it wrong, people die. All right. We're going to stop there. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah.